Good evening, students. Today I am teaching you WTO, World Trade Organization. It was introduced in the year 1995. It is a legal institution of multilateral trading system. There were 150 member countries in WTO in the year 2013. The number of member countries were increased to 164 in the year 2016. Features. It is a legal institution. Second, its main duty is to settle down the disputes or quarrels among the member countries. Third, all the WTO member countries have equal rights. Fourth, it is not an agent of UNO, United Nations Organization. Fifth, WTO is rule-based and time-bound. Bound means limit. Sixth, it covers trade in goods and services. Seventh, it aims at free trade. Functions of WTO. First, to eliminate. Eliminate means to remove trade barriers. Barriers means controls. Second, to provide institutional framework for the conduct of member countries. Third, to provide an integrated structure of administration and to facilitate multilateral trade agreements. Fourth, to ensure the implementation of sustainable code. Fifth, to emphasize trade liberalization. Sixth, to cooperate with the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and World Bank in trade policy making. Seventh, to settle down trade-related disputes. Eighth, to keep a watch on the development of the world economy and to provide consultancy service to the member countries. Now, what are the principles of WTO? First, non-discrimination. There are two major components of non-discrimination, that is, the most favored nation and the national treatment principle. The most favored nation rule requires that favorable treatment granted to one country be immediately and unconditionally granted to all other countries. Trade restrictions too must be applied equally. National treatment is a principle in international law, utilized in many treaty regimes involving trade and intellectual property. It requires equal treatment of foreigners and locals. National treatment is the principle of giving others the same treatment as one's own nationals, one's own citizens. National treatment also applies to imported goods once they enter the market, foreign and domestic services, and to foreign and local trademarks, copyrights, and patents. Second, liberalization of trade. Trade liberalization is the removal or reduction of restrictions or barriers on the free exchange of goods between nations. These barriers means controls, include tariffs such as duties and surcharges, and non-tariff barriers such as licensing, rules, and quotas. Third, predictability through binding and transparency. In the WTO, when countries agree to open their markets for goods or services, they bind their commitments. For goods, these bindings amount to ceilings on customs tariff rates. In developed countries, the rates actually charged and the bound rates tend to be the same. Fourth, enabling fair competition. WTO is open and fair and encourages fair competition in agriculture, industry, and other sectors. Fifth, extending support for development programs and encouraging economic reforms. WTO agreements and principles are meant to promote the economic development of the countries. The developing countries are allowed concessions, time and flexibility in adjustment to the requirements of WTO agreements. Objectives of WTO. First, to ensure the reduction of tariff. Second, to eliminate discriminatory treatment in the international trade relation. Third, to facilitate higher standard of living, full employment and protection. Fourth, to ensure economic development of developing countries. Fifth, to facilitate use of world's resources for sustainable development. WTO agreements. First, agreement on trade-related intellectual property rights. In short, TRIPS. The agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights is an international legal agreement between all the member nations of the World Trade Organization. The TRIPS agreement requires WTO members to provide protection for a minimum term of 20 years from the filing date of a patent application for any invention, including for a pharmaceutical product or process. It is a tool to create wealth through knowledge. This right is given to the creator to prevent others from using their own inventions. Following are the important forms of intellectual property rights. First one, patent right. Patent protection means that the invention cannot be commercially made, used, distributed, imported or sold by others without the patent owner's consent. Consent means permission. A patent is a right granted to an inventor by the federal government that permits the inventor to exclude others from making, selling or using it. Second, copyright. Copyright refers to the legal right of the owner of intellectual property. In simpler terms, copyright is the right to copy. This means that the original creators of products and anyone they give authorization to are the only ones with the exclusive right to reproduce the work. Copyright is a legal means of protecting an author's work. It is a type of intellectual property that provides exclusive publication, distribution and usage rights for the author. Many different types of content can be protected by copyright. Examples include books, poems, plays, songs, films and artwork. These are the examples. Third, geographical indication. A geographical indication, GI, is a sign used on products that have a specific geographical origin and possess qualities or a reputation. Reputation means name that are due to that origin. Examples of possible Indian geographical indications are Basmati rice, Alfonso mango, Nagpur orange, Kolhapuri chappal, Bikaneri bhujia, Paitani and Banaras sari, Feni that is liquor from Goa, Lonavala chikki, Tirunelveli halwa and Mysore rasam etc. Next, industrial design. Industrial design ID is the professional practice of designing products, devices, objects and services used by millions of people around the world every day. Industrial designers develop aspects of a product that create emotional connections with the user. They integrate all aspects of form, fit, and function, optimizing them to create the best possible user experience. Examples: mobile phone, vacuum cleaner, etc. Next, trade secrets. Trade secrets are intellectual property rights on confidential information which may be sold or licensed. In general, to qualify as a trade secret, the information must be commercially valuable because it is secret, be known only to a limited group of people. The secret formula for Coca-Cola is an example of a trade secret, that is a formula or a recipe. Next, trademarks. Trademarks are word, phrase or a symbol which represent a company or product. They distinguish the products or services of one company or organization from those its competitors. Some other examples of trademarks include acronyms like NBC, IBM, and extend to slogans, stylized fonts, and even colors. Second, trade-related investment measures, TRIMS. The agreement on trade-related investment measures, TRIMS, are rules that are applicable to the domestic regulations a country applies to foreign investors, often as part of an industrial policy. Trade-related investment measures is one of the four principal legal agreements of the WTO Trade Treaty. The important provisions of TRIMS are as follows. First, there would be no discrimination in favor of domestic capital and enterprise so that the foreign investors and suppliers would get the same treatment and privileges as the domestic ones. Second, foreigners would not be debarred from any area of investment and there would be no preconditions in the form of equity participation by the domestic investors. Third, foreign investors would have complete freedom to import raw materials and components, etc. They would not be obliged to use local raw materials and other inputs. Fourth, the investors would be free to repatriate profits, dividends, and investment and royalty earnings. Fifth, there would be no export obligation for the foreign investors. Sixth, the investors would not be obliged to have a program of increasing indigenous, means domestic content of the product. Third agreement, the General Agreement on Trade in Services, GATS. The General Agreement on Trade in Services is a treaty of the World Trade Organization which entered into force in January 1995 as a result of Uruguay round negotiations. It is the eighth round of multilateral trade negotiations. Negotiations means agreements. Objectives: first, expansion of international trade. Second, increase of world production by ensuring full employment in the participating nations. Third, development and full utilization of world resources and advertisements. Fourth, raising standard of living of the world community as a whole. The areas covered by GATS. First, cross-border trade. It covers service flows from the territory of one member country into the territory of another member country. Examples: banking, telecommunications or mail. Second, consumption abroad. It refers to situations where a service consumer, example, a tourist or a patient, moves into another member's territory to get service. Third, commercial presence. GATS recognizes that it is often necessary for service suppliers to establish a commercial presence abroad to ensure closer contact with the consumer at various stages of production, distribution, marketing, sale, and delivery, as well as after sales service. Fourth, presence of natural persons. It is a situation when a service supplier of one member country enters the territory of another member country to supply a service. Example, accountants, doctors, or teachers. Obligations under GATS. First, MFN treatment. It implies that same treatment should be given to all member countries. Means that there should be no partiality. Second, transparency. Transparency means clear. All GATS members are required to publish all members of general application and have to respond to other members' information or queries. C. Market access means market support. Market access for goods in the WTO means the conditions, tariff and non-tariff measures agreed by members for the entry of specific goods into their markets. Now, impact of WTO on Indian economy. First, WTO has helped India to improve its export competitiveness. Second, lower tariff barriers and market access has helped India to participate in the global economy. Third, transfer and exchange of technology has helped India to achieve its growth and development. Fourth, market access has helped to reduce cost and time which are required for bilateral trade. Next, a well-defined dispute mechanism has helped India to settle down its disputes. Thank you, students.